It was still dark outside when I transferred the money. $2,500, like I had done every first Monday of the month for the last 5 years. I didn't even blink, just tapped, confirmed, and closed the banking app like it was part of my morning ritual. The coffee maker hissed softly behind me. I was still in my robe, hair unbrushed, staring out over Denver from my kitchen window as the city slowly came to life. Somewhere, I told myself, Mom would be smiling as she checked her phone. Somewhere, Dad would breathe easier knowing his medication was covered. And Zach would probably still be asleep. My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 36 years old, unmarried, and I run a healthcare marketing consultancy that I built from scratch. The work is demanding, 60 hours a week on a slow month. But I believed in what I did. I believed in taking care of people. And for the past half-decade, the people I cared for most were my family. I paid for their bills, medical, utilities, surprise plumbing repairs. I added my parents as dependents on my insurance plan when Dad retired early. I co-signed on a car when Zach couldn't get approved. I gave and gave because I thought that's what good daughters do. They always made it seem like they had no one else. Dad's pension wasn't enough. Mom's prescriptions were too expensive. Zach couldn't find stable work. Every phone call ended the same way. We hate to ask, honey, but we wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. And every time, I said, of course. The house I lived in, the one I worked late nights to pay off, sat neatly on a quiet street in Edge Hill, a sleepy Denver suburb where neighbors waved from porches and dogs barked at squirrels in the trees. No one knew how much I had sacrificed to get here. No one saw me re-wear the same 3 blazers every week. No one noticed I hadn't taken a vacation in 6 years. But that was fine. My family came first. There were days when I'd get a thank you card in the mail, a note scribbled in Mom's handwriting. You're the glue holding us together. Those were the good days. On the harder days, I'd just get silence. No thank you. No update. Just another text. Need help again. Let us know if you can. And I always could. I always did. I never imagined that behind their grateful smiles they were laughing. I never imagined that I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their business model. And it would take one stupid mistake, one text not meant for me, to tear the entire mask away. It happened on a Thursday morning. I was mid-sentence, presenting a new campaign strategy over Zoom to a major client in Chicago, when my phone lit up with a message from Zach. The notification hovered at the top of the screen, and I nearly ignored it, but then I caught the words ATM, dropped another $2,500, and felt a strange jolt run through my chest. My voice faltered. For a split second, I told myself it must be a joke, one of Zach's poorly timed attempts at humor. But then the second notification came, from Mom this time. Finally bought the golf clubs! Dad's gonna flip when she finds out she paid for them. The air around me tightened. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I barely heard my client say, Rachel? You still there? As the screen blurred in front of me. I clicked into the group chat we shared, me, Zach, Mom, and Dad. My thumb hovered over the messages, almost afraid to scroll. But I did, and what I saw changed everything. Zach had just called me the ATM. And Mom had casually confirmed they used my latest transfer to buy golf equipment. There was no emergency, no prescriptions, no doctor's appointment, just a shopping spree and a laugh at my expense. Then, as if the universe wanted to rip the curtain off completely, another message popped up. It was a screenshot, but not of our family chat. It was a private thread between Zach and our parents, the one I was never meant to see. I wasn't Rachel in that thread. I wasn't their daughter. I was the backup plan, the fund. Most of all, I was the family ATM. I sat frozen in my home office, the Zoom meeting still running on mute. My hands trembled as I reread every word in that chat, every laughing emoji, every strategy, every line that made it clear they weren't just taking advantage of my generosity, they were orchestrating it. Tell her, Dad's blood pressure meds are up again. That one always works. Don't forget to sound tired and sad when you call her. She folds faster that way. Once she signs that refinance doc, I'm using it to put a down on the Tahoe. My stomach turned. My skin prickled. These weren't strangers. These were the people who raised me. The ones who tucked me in at night and sent me off to college with proud tears in their eyes. Now they were calculating exactly how much pity to fake in order to get more money from me, and mocking me for falling for it. Something in me went still. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt cold. I closed the laptop without a word, stood up, and walked into the kitchen. I opened the window. Rain had started to fall, soft, steady, almost gentle. For a moment, it reminded me of childhood, of warm cocoa and blankets and bedtime stories. But not anymore. Now, the rain felt like mockery tapping on the glass. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing tethering me to the ground. The family group chat was still open on my phone, burning into my vision like a wound I couldn't close. I scrolled up again, just to make sure I hadn't misunderstood, just to be certain that the people I'd loved more than anything had really written those words. They had. I needed someone not to cry to, not to vent. I needed someone who could think, who wouldn't soften the truth just because it hurt. So I called Megan. Megan Lane had been my closest friend since freshman year at UC Boulder. We met during a late-night cram session at the campus library, bonded over shared love of black coffee and disdain for small talk. 15 years later, she was now one of the sharpest estate attorneys in Colorado. She also happened to be the only person I trusted completely. She picked up on the second ring. "Megan," I said, and was surprised at how calm my voice sounded. "I think my family is trying to steal my house. I need to know how to protect it." There was a pause. Then her tone shifted, professional and cutting through. "Where are you?" "Home." "Good. Meet me at my office in an hour. Don't sign anything. Don't talk to them. Just bring every document you can find." An hour later, I was sitting across from her in a long mahogany conference room, the rain now thudding harder against the windows. I slid my phone across the table, the family chat still open. Megan read in silence, her jaw tightening with every scroll. She didn't say a word until she'd finished. Then she pulled out a yellow legal pad, clicked her pen, and said, "Let's start at the top. What's in your name, and what have they had access to in the last 12 months?" I answered everything. The house, fully paid off, no mortgage. The insurance, all in my name. My Dropbox, accessed once by Zach 6 months ago when I let him borrow my old laptop for grad school. I had forgotten it auto-saved everything, including bank statements, legal drafts, and a blank power of attorney form I downloaded but never signed. Megan froze. Was it filled out? No, it was just a template. But even as I said it, a memory flickered. 2 weeks ago, Mom had stopped by. She'd brought lemon cookies. We drank tea. She said something about taxes, needed help scanning documents. I signed a few pages while she chatted about a doctor's visit. I didn't even read them. Megan's eyes narrowed. "Rachel, find that document. Now." I drove home like my body wasn't mine. My hands moved the wheel. My mind was blank. The paper was right where I left it, folded in the kitchen drawer beneath old coupons and spare batteries. It looked harmless, standard legal formatting, notary stamp in the corner. But when Megan examined it, her expression went stone cold. "This isn't for insurance access," she said, voice flat. "This is a limited power of attorney, giving your mother and brother joint authority over your real estate assets." My heart stopped. "They planned this," she said, "and unless we revoke it today, they can act on it legally." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of legal filings and frantic paperwork. Megan didn't waste a second. She filed an immediate revocation of the power of attorney, had me sign an affidavit swearing the signature had been obtained under false pretenses, and flagged my property with the county recorder's office to block any pending real estate transactions for the next 30 days. Her movements were fast, surgical. She'd clearly done this before. "We're lucky," she muttered, eyes locked on her screen, "if they haven't used it yet." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I sat there, silent, staring at my own reflection in the dark window. The rain had stopped, but the sky outside was still heavy with clouds, like the city itself was holding its breath. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Denver area code. I answered, my voice low. "Hello." "Hi, this is Lisa from Grant and Oak Realty," a polite woman said. "Just following up on the listing for the Edge Hill Drive property. We're preparing the draft for the seller's review. Kevin said you'd be back in town next week to sign." I didn't blink. "Which listing?" There was a pause. Then, gently, "The listing for your home. Kevin Wright submitted the paperwork last Thursday. He brought in a copy of your signature for verification." I thanked her and hung up. And then silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses against your ribs and makes your throat tighten. They were already moving. They were already using my name. They were so sure I wouldn't find out. I forwarded the voicemail to Megan. Within minutes, she added the realty office to the cease and desist letter she'd been drafting since the moment I'd walked into her office. Then she looked at me, her tone sharp. "Start gathering everything," she said. "Emails, bank transfers, texts, screenshots, any interaction where they asked for money, any record of your payments. And find the original signed copy of that POA. We're not just playing defense anymore." I drove home and pulled out a black binder, the one I usually reserved for tax season. I printed everything I had: wire confirmations, Venmo logs, thank you cards from Mom after emergencies, chat logs, screenshots of the thread where they mocked me. I labeled the front cover in red marker, "Family Fraud Case." That night, I sat alone on the living room floor, surrounded by papers. The lights were off. I didn't need them. The blue glow from my laptop was enough. I glanced up at the mantel. A photo stared back, me and Zach at the zoo, cotton candy in our hands, Mom behind us, smiling like she'd never hurt anyone. I stared at that picture for a long time, and I wondered if that version of her had ever truly existed. The next morning, Megan called before sunrise. "Rachel, get dressed. We're filing a police report." By 7:15, we were sitting in the sterile gray lobby of the Denver Financial Crimes Unit. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead. A detective named Collins greeted us, tall, composed, her handshake firm but not performative. She led us to a small interview room, closed the door, and said simply, "Tell me everything." So I did. From the first payment I sent 5 years ago, to the latest message where they called me the family ATM. From the accidental screenshot to the fraudulent POA. From the fake listing of my house to the voicemail I received just the night before, a voicemail from my father. His voice had been measured. Too measured. The way he always sounded when he was trying to appear reasonable, but what he really wanted was control. "Rachel," he had said, "we need to talk about this behavior. I understand emotions are high and money can complicate things, but this is just a misunderstanding. Let's have dinner as a family." Not once did he deny what they'd done. Not once did he mention the fake signature or the forged documents. Not once did he acknowledge that they'd violated every boundary I had, just that I was being emotional. Detective Collins took notes, quietly nodding. "You did the right thing," she said. "This isn't just financial abuse. It meets the threshold for real estate fraud and attempted identity theft. We'll open a formal investigation." I handed over the printed messages, the POA document, the realtor's voicemail, the screenshot of the group chat. Megan added the revocation forms and affidavit. Collins requested a forensic analysis of the signature. When we walked out of the station, the wind had picked up. My coat flapped open. I felt raw, exposed. At home, I changed every lock. installed a full security system with cameras on every entrance. Then I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I even shut down the checking account I'd used for their transfers. But the damage was already spreading. That evening, the phone calls began. Zach, Mom, then Dad again. Some were calm, others frantic. One voicemail from Mom was just sobbing. You're tearing this family apart. You're letting outsiders poison your mind. We're your blood, Rachel. But the one that made me sit down, literally sink into the floor, was from Zach. You're making a huge mistake, he said. You think this gives you power? You think we need your money? We'll find another way. But just remember, we know things about you too. Be careful how far you take this. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was a threat. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the empty street as the wind bent the trees. The house was silent, but my mind wasn't. What did Zach mean by "we know things about you"? For years, I had trusted him with everything. He used my Wi-Fi, my devices, stayed at my apartment when his lease ran out, borrowed my laptop, logged into my Dropbox. What had he copied? What had he kept? By sunrise, I had forwarded his voicemail to Megan. She didn't respond with words, just sent back a cease and desist draft so sharp it could cut bone. Within 24 hours, Zach and my parents were served, officially notified that any further interference with my finances, property, or personal data would trigger immediate legal action. But the damage was already taking shape in the shadows. That week, my phone started ringing with strange numbers. Unknown mortgage lenders, estate planning advisors, one LLC offering something called rapid liquidity restructuring. They had started shopping me around, selling my name. I went into lockdown mode. I combed through every account I owned, changed every password, activated 2-factor authentication on everything, alerted my bank manager, who moved all my assets into a fraud-protected tier and assigned me a private security contact. I even changed the locks again. Then came the final straw. A courier arrived at my door with a manila envelope. No words, just a nod and gone. Inside, a legal document titled Notice of Intent to Vacate Property due to probate proceedings. Probate. I wasn't dead. I wasn't under guardianship. But someone had filed paperwork with the court suggesting I was medically unfit to manage my own affairs, and that a conservatorship petition had been submitted. My stomach knotted. My hands turned cold. I called Megan. She met me at her office within the hour. One glance at the paperwork and her face hardened. They're trying to declare you legally incompetent. My heart slammed against my ribs. It all made sense now. The vague comments Mom used to make about my migraines. The way Zach always said I worked too much, that I was forgetting things lately. They had been laying groundwork for over a year, using every bit of personal detail I'd shared to twist the narrative into a weapon. Megan moved fast. She filed a counteraction within the hour, scheduled an independent psychological evaluation, and demanded the court disclose who had submitted the petition. The name came back that afternoon. Zach Monroe. Filed 2 days ago. That night, I paced my living room, reading every old email, every old text, every memory I could no longer trust. I wasn't just under attack. I was being erased, and the people doing it weren't strangers. They were my blood. They were my plan B if I ever needed help. And now they were trying to steal everything I'd built by proving I didn't deserve to own it. By the end of that week, I had stopped hoping for explanations. I didn't want closure. I wanted documentation. I wanted a timeline so airtight that there would be no room left for them to twist the truth, no space for their half-smiles and sob stories to infect the narrative. So I gave myself one job: document everything. I started with a spreadsheet, 5 years' worth of payments, every $2,500 transfer, every extra $1,000 for an emergency, Every Venmo memo that read for Dad's meds, or Zach's tuition, or gas leak repair. Then I attached the bank statements. Then screenshots of texts, voicemails, call logs. Then the thank you cards Mom sent after those payments. Her handwriting always the same. You're the responsible one. You always were. I added every piece of it to the black binder. Megan called the next day with an update. The forensic document examiner had confirmed what we already knew. The signature on the property sale authorization wasn't mine. The strokes were off. The pressure inconsistent. The baseline of my letters didn't match. It was a forgery. But it wasn't just a bad forgery, it was criminal. And then it got worse. The notary who had stamped it? A freelance mobile notary Zach had found on Craigslist. Likely paid in cash. No formal record of identity verification. Megan had already tracked the notary down. She wasn't cooperating yet, but that would change. We were building a case, brick by brick, lie by lie. But the turning point came later that night when I received a message from Lena, a girl I hadn't spoken to in years. We'd gone to high school together, hadn't been close since graduation. Her message was short. Hey! Just wanted to let you know. Your mom's been telling people you're not well. Like mentally. Said you're off lately and might need help. I didn't believe her, but it was weird. I stared at the screen. They weren't just painting me as unstable on paper. They were seeding the idea in the community. Every joke about my migraines. Every comment about how Rachel's been forgetful. Every look, every whisper at holiday dinners. None of it had been casual. It had been calculated, strategic. They were setting the stage for conservatorship long before the paperwork was filed. And I was done. I called Megan again. I'm not just fighting the fraud anymore, I said. We're suing. Civil liability, emotional distress, exploitation, defamation. I want it all. There was a pause. Then Megan's voice, cool and clear. Good. Let's bury them. The lawsuit went out on a Monday morning. It was clean, precise, brutal. Megan filed it directly to the county civil court, naming Zach Monroe, Frank Monroe, and Elaine Monroe as co-defendants. The charges included real estate fraud, attempted identity theft, civil defamation, and emotional exploitation. Within 12 hours of the case being served, I got a message from my mother. It was almost laughable. Please don't do this. We're family. This isn't what your father would have wanted. He was literally listed as one of the defendants. Then Zach left a voicemail trying to sound like the big brother who used to walk me to school. You've made your point, Rachel. Let's not spiral this out of control. We can sit down. Talk. You don't need to involve lawyers. I stood in my kitchen listening, mouth tight with something between a smirk and a scream. Now they wanted to talk. Now they remembered we were family. Where was that energy when they were forging my name, listing my house, trying to have me declared incompetent? They didn't want peace. They wanted control. But I wasn't playing defense anymore. Megan and I had already mapped every move they'd made, documented, time-stamped, categorized. The binder now held over 70 pages. Bank records, screenshots, notarized forms, and voice recordings. One particularly damning file, a recording of Mom, standing in my kitchen weeks ago, saying casually, "That's why Kevin handled the paperwork." You wouldn't even notice. It was the moment I'd been waiting for, an admission on tape. With that, the court granted an emergency injunction. The forged property listing was frozen. Any financial activity tied to the house was locked down. Megan filed for a restraining order that same afternoon. I thought they'd back off. But people like them don't stop when they're caught. They double down. 2 days later, a post appeared on Facebook. My father's page. Public. Dramatic. Manipulative. It read like a eulogy and a character assassination all in one. He claimed I had changed, that I was being manipulated by greedy attorneys, that his daughter had become a stranger, accusing the very people who sacrificed everything for her. It was written to stir sympathy, to confuse, to make me look ungrateful, unstable. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because my inbox was already filling with messages from people who had seen the court filings and knew the truth. One of Zach's old coworkers reached out. He offered a sworn statement. During a staff party, Zach bragged about taking over the house soon, about finally getting what he deserved. We added it to the case file, but the moment that hit hardest came in the form of an official letter from their attorney. They weren't just asking for mediation. They were suing me back for defamation, emotional harm, and financial sabotage. They demanded $250,000 in damages. I read the letter once and laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly pathetic. They thought they could steal my house, lie about my mental health, rewrite my identity, and when I stood up, they said I was the problem. The countersuit was thick, nearly 50 pages, printed on textured legal paper, the kind designed to intimidate. They accused me of destroying their reputation, causing emotional distress, and sabotaging their financial future. In total, they demanded $250,000 in damages. It was absurd, it was offensive, and it was dangerous because it meant they were willing to go public. Megan called me less than 10 minutes after I emailed her the documents. "They're bluffing," she said. "Their claim is weak. The evidence is garbage. But we're past family drama now, Rachel. This is a full-scale legal war. We didn't waste time. We filed a motion to dismiss under Colorado's SLAPP statute, laws designed to prevent lawsuits meant to silence victims. And with that motion, we attached everything: the forged documents, the notary fraud, the attempt at a conservatorship without medical cause, and a full list of defamatory rumors being spread in the community. Then came the next hit. A local blog picked up a story from anonymous sources close to the family. The headline: Marketing Executive Accused of Betraying Her Own Family. The article painted me as a cold, ungrateful daughter, a woman obsessed with her career, emotionally unstable, manipulated by an aggressive female lawyer. I didn't respond. I didn't post. I didn't defend myself in the comment thread. Instead, I let the silence stretch, knowing the truth would speak louder in court than any blog ever could. That week, I deleted every social media app, focused on my case, took long walks at night with my phone on silent. But the silence didn't last. One evening, just after 10 p.m., someone banged on my front door. Not knocked, banged. Fists against wood. Angry. Repetitive. The sound echoed through the house like a threat. I didn't move at first. Just stood at the top of the stairs, heart pounding. Then I peeked through the peephole. It was Zach, standing on my porch, fists clenched, his jaw locked in panic and fury. His face was pale, sweat glistening on his temples. For a moment, he didn't move. He just stared at the door, breathing hard. I didn't flinch. I didn't open it. Instead, I tapped into the Ring camera system and activated the speaker. "You are trespassing," I said. "This is being recorded. Leave now." He didn't say a word. He stood there for another full minute, then turned and walked away. By morning, Megan had filed for a temporary restraining order, and the judge granted it within 48 hours. I thought that might be the breaking point, that maybe now, finally, they would stop. But they didn't. 2 days later, my father was rushed to the hospital with chest pains. My mother left me a voicemail between sobs, saying the stress was killing him, that I was killing him, that this witch hunt was tearing the family apart. I listened to it 3 times, and then I wrote a letter, not to them, but to myself, a list of every moment I had ignored my instincts to protect theirs. Every time I drained my savings, canceled plans, swallowed guilt that wasn't mine, and I ended it with a promise. I will not save people who are trying to destroy me. The court dates came faster than I expected. The countersuit from my family was torn apart in less than 10 minutes. The judge dismissed it without hesitation, citing lack of evidence, clear malice, and abusive intent. Megan didn't even have to raise her voice. The documents spoke for themselves. But the criminal case was still active: fraud, forgery, attempted theft, defamation. Zach and my parents had switched lawyers twice by then, clearly stalling, clearly hoping I'd fold. I didn't. I showed up to every deposition, brought every bank receipt, answered every question clearly, calmly, without bitterness. And slowly, everyone saw the truth. Not just the prosecutors. Me. I saw it too. For the first time in years, I saw myself not as the burdened daughter, not as the overgiving sister, but as a woman who had survived what no one should ever have to survive. Betrayal not from enemies, but from people who once kissed her goodnight. The final pretrial hearing ended with a shift I didn't expect. Their lawyer requested a settlement, not a mediation, not a plea, a settlement, because they knew if this went to trial, they would lose everything. Their offer: withdraw all claims, publicly apologize in writing and under oath, pay a portion of my legal fees. In return, I would agree not to sue them further. I asked for time, not because I wasn't sure, but because I wanted to be certain that accepting peace wouldn't feel like surrender. 3 days later, I gave Megan my answer. I'll consider it, I said, but only after the apology is made public. No spin, no vagueness, no private letters. I want the world to know what they did. They agreed, and just like that, it was over. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or laugh or throw my fists in the air. I just sat alone on my back porch with a cup of coffee and felt silence. Not the heavy silence from before. Not the waiting to be hurt kind. This was quiet. No tightness in my chest. No pounding in my spine. Just stillness. The apology was written by their lawyers, of course. Cold, structured, legal. But it was public. It was signed. And it was real. They admitted to lying about my mental health, forging my signature, submitting fraudulent real estate documents, attempting to exploit me for financial control. I didn't keep the printed copy. I didn't need to. The only proof I wanted was the absence of their names in my inbox, the absence of panic at every unexpected call, the absence of guilt disguised as loyalty. And that absence was freedom. In the months that followed, I rewrote my will. This time, I named no blood relatives. Instead, I left a portion of my estate to fund legal aid for women facing financial abuse by family. I started volunteering anonymously, quietly helping other women who had trusted too long, given too much, who, like me, thought family meant safety. And as for Zach, my parents, I don't know where they are now. I don't care. I don't look. I don't ask. Whatever consequences they're living with are theirs alone. I don't carry them anymore. Sometimes when I stand in line for coffee or pass strangers on the street, I wonder if they can see it, that something fundamental has shifted, that I'm not the woman who bends anymore, that I'm not the one who over-explains, who sacrifices, who holds everything together with bleeding hands. I am not their daughter anymore. I was their backup plan. Now I am my own future, and I am finally, irrevocably free.